Okay, so hello, everybody. For those of you who are not on live, you'll get to watch the recording and hopefully you'll learn something. So one of the things, oh, there's Shauna. Okay, so Shauna, I'm going to read the question. You're going to answer it. And we're going to go fast because we have to be off no later than 5. This was Jen's question. She said, how should we handle it if our mentee does not meet the goals they set or an expectation we had for them?
Awesome. I think that this should be like an incentive-based thing. So, you know, when they're asking to go out or even when you guys are suggesting, hey, let's go out for a meal or let's go, you know, do stuff like that. I think that this would be a great way to say, hey, when you reach this goal, then we can go out for a meal. Or, hey, when you reach this goal, then we can go have a girls' day and get our nails done. Hey, when you reach this goal, you know what I mean? We'll do something like that. So I would say incentivize those goals just to help it. I mean, because I know in my life, whenever I reach a goal of mine, I'm like, yep, I'm going to go treat myself. I'm going to go get my nails done, or I'm going to go take myself out to dinner, you know? And so I think it'd be a good way to kind of instill that in them as well.
Okay. Who meets with the residents to establish goals, help them move towards those goals? Still trying to distinguish the role of the Dream Center counselors team and the mentor team and how we can best work together. So do you want to talk about needs and services plan that each person has? Do you think that's something we could share with the team leaders, their needs and services plan?
Yeah, we can. Needs and services is more like the needs and services that we do is more of like inner healing stuff that we're getting them to work on. So, I mean, I don't know if that would be super appropriate to share. However, we do have, you know.
You muted.
Sorry, you guys, it never ends. That we are trying to meet with them, whether it's like an ID or you know, working towards getting a birth certificate or a GED or something. But Caitlin is really going to be the point of contact for that. She is, you know, doing all of their case management on this side of things.
Okay, so what I'll do is I will send all the team leaders Caitlin Presley's information, but only to reach out to her as far as making sure your goals are aligning with what their goals are as far as, you know, education and all the different areas. Okay.
Perfect.
How is the residents' money handled once they begin working? This is an easy one.
Yeah, that's a great question. So residents, their first paycheck is completely for them. We allow them to have that first paycheck to kind of be able to either get some of the things that they need for work or to be able to, sorry, you guys.
It's okay.
To be able to you know, maybe just splurge a little bit on themselves. Right. After that, every paycheck. So what happens is we sit down and we write out a budget and we go over their bills and we go over their income. And so every paycheck, you know, we work on which bills need to be paid with which paycheck. They pay those bills. And then after that, 80% of their check comes to us to be put into savings for them.
So 80% of the check after their bills are paid, like their phone bill and all that. So that's something that your finance people, when they're setting the goals for them, you know, and remember, you guys, if you get someone who's on second pillar, they're probably not working yet. They can't work yet. So this is something you start preparing for. Their first check, they get the whole thing. Starting with the second one, after they pay their bills, 80% goes into savings and the rest they can play with.
And honestly, even some of the third and fourth pillars may not even be working because they're going to be pursuing school. So they may not have a budget to even work on for quite some time.
Okay, some of these questions are going to overlap. If a resident is not working and does not have family support, do they get any allowance from the Dream Center? And how would they pay for a phone, extra food, all the shopping? Do you want to explain how the money works? Let's just address that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So while they're here at Dream Center, almost every need is provided for them. They have hygiene here, they have feminine products here, they have, you know, they have access to clothing and shoes and you know, they have pretty much everything. So they are also placed onto state assistance, which is, you know, their health insurance and then food stamps for a lot of them. So they'll get, you know, anywhere from $250 a month for food stamps on up. It just really depends on their individual case. The moms will have WIC, which provides, you know, food for themselves if they're pregnant, and then also food for baby or formula for baby once baby arrives. Now, I do have certain residents that can't get on state assistance. For example, if they are, you know, still just don't have documentation, which we have a lot of. And so those residents, I give them $40 every 2 weeks, you know, to get food, so that they are, you know, still able to get something that they want outside of what we're already serving 3 meals a day here at the Dream Center. Now, if it was something like a cell phone, I'm not going to pay somebody's cell phone bill every week. You know, that's something that they're going to have to reach towards as a goal to be able to work to do that for themselves.
Okay. All right.
I wouldn't even pay for my kid's cell phone bill every week. Or every month. She needs to work and pay for it herself.
Okay. Okay. Are residents given money earned through their points upon grad? Okay, so the $5,000. The way the $5,000 works when they graduate is it is not guaranteed. It's all based on the incentive points that they earn at each pillar. Once they graduate, whatever monies they qualify for, and the max is 5,000, then the mentor team sits down with Shauna and myself, and you and we all, the grown-ups, decide how that money is going to best be invested, because y'all know $5,000 will go just like that if it's just handed to them. Now, one of the things that I sent out to the mentor team leaders that I'll have to send out again to remind you guys is, if you do the Arizona tax credit as a single person, $400 for the Dream Center, or $800 as a couple, all of that will be earmarked for your mentee. So that will go into their $5,000 fund. And when you think about 9 people doing the tax credit for 1.5 to 2 years, it pays for that $5,000. So that's how we kind of, you know, hope to fund that, if that's what you choose to do with your Arizona tax credits. Okay. We're not going to ask that. What is the process for seeing a doctor and get medication refills through the Dream Center? Let's talk
So I
about
have a
that.
clinical services director here on site who handles all of that for our first and second pillars. They go see her, she makes their appointments. Most of the services are here on site. We have a doctor that through health and wellness that sees our individuals that are over 26, and then all of our individuals who are 25 and under see Phoenix Children's Hospital and Banner Health. Most prescriptions are prescribed through them. We have a pharmacy that delivers straight to us, and insurance covers most of those things. And if there's something outside of insurance, we usually cover the cost. Once they get to third pillar, we start teaching them how to do all of these things on their own. So our clinical services director gets with the resident and starts, you know, we'll remind them like, hey, you need a refill on your prescription. So why don't you call the pharmacy and ask for a refill on your prescription? And if there is no refills, then hey, this is how you set up a doctor's appointment so that you can go down and talk to your doctor so you can get a refill, or, you know, all of those things. So this is third pillar is when we start teaching the residents to really take that on by themselves. And by fourth pillar, I don't want my clinical services director doing any of that for them. I want them to be independent on making their own doctor's appointments, refilling their own prescriptions, doing all of that on their own.
Good. Okay. Okay. So let's talk real quick about the mentor team positions. Some of the positions the mentee is going to need access to immediately. Spiritual, maybe family guidance, finance, if they're trying to budget their money, things like that. Other things such as transportation, housing, you're going to have to think outside the box a little bit in those positions. For instance, housing. They're on second pillar, they're living at the Dream Center, that's their house. So some of the things that you can do with the housing person is they can actually go maybe to the person's room, standing outside of it, because unless you have accountability with leadership, you can't go in the room and talk to them about how do you clean your room? How do you take care of your room? How do you
How could you
you know,
organize? Yeah.
be
how could you-
organized? Like a lot of them need help with organization. So
Mhm.
anything to do with your living quarters, your living space, and how you live would be housing. Transportation. Maybe at second pillar, you start talking to them about how do you use the bus system? How do you, how do you call Uber? How do you call Lyft? Because we don't let them get on the buses after dark. Anything to do with moving you from one place to the other. Okay.
Also, an idea for finance would be like finance and nutrition could get together and come up with like meal plans and how to stretch and budget their food stamps that they're getting, so that they can have meals for the entire month and not just to the first 2 weeks and run out and have nothing for the rest of the month.
Right.
So these are just ideas where you guys can kind of start to partner together in those areas that aren't like super necessary until fourth pillar graduation.
Right. Okay. And there is more freedom when they start working or they go to school full time. They do have a lot more freedom. So that's where what happens in second and third pillar becomes really important, the end of third pillar and into fourth pillar. Okay. So we have a situation with a team where the team is very generous monetarily and with gifts. So Shauna, can you just repeat what you and I chatted about earlier today as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have to remember what all of our residents are walking away from. They're walking away from these lifestyles where they've had fast money, and they're walking away from substances. They're walking away from many things. So when they're going back out into the community, even if they're farther in our program and they're in third and fourth pillars, they're now starting to go back out into the community. They're now starting to face these temptations, going to Circle K, even there's cigarettes right there behind the counter. A lot of them have liquor now, it's right there on the counter. And so these are temptations that I see often when they have extra cash just hanging out with them, that they will slip up and they will buy a pack of cigarettes and they will go and smoke. Usually when they're further in the program, they have that little bit of like condemnation inside themselves where they like come and tell on themselves before they ever get caught. And they're like, okay, like I did this, but that is the point of, them not having this extra cash on them. And this is why I, take it very seriously to collect that 80%, make sure their bills are paid, and only give them a small amount of spending money to make sure, that we're tracking all of that and keeping them. So if they're receiving a bunch of extra money from you guys, or even if it's just $20 here, $20 there, it just can't happen. It's just too much of a temptation for them to go out, buy cigarettes or alcohol or even drugs.
And I have told y'all several times, and I know the new people just recently heard this. If you want to take them snacks, if you want to bring them healthy food, if you want to bring them a bag of apples or oranges, that's fine, because that's really what you want them to do with that extra 10 or that extra 20. If you want to pick up little things for them, that's fine, but you are not Santa Claus. Okay. Right. And this is already costing you time, gas, energy, all of that. We don't want you to become Santa. We want you to be the parent, the grandma, the grandpa, the coaches, the teachers. Your coaches in high school and your teachers in high school didn't say, oh my gosh, Melissa, you did so good on this. Here's $20. Okay. So we have to kind of think in those terms. And we also don't want to enable them to have the flexibility to make those choices that Shauna just talked about, where they could possibly have temptation and mess up. Okay. The other question that was asked was, and Shauna addressed this in the beginning, let's say you want to take them to get their nails done. Okay. I'll give you that. Although that could be expensive, but that should be an incentive. That should be an incentive. Like, okay, you reached this goal, this goal, this goal, this goal. You have 4 choices. You can go with Miss Jan and get your nails done, or you can go with Miss Angelica and you can go to lunch or something. Giving them choices within the boundaries of what they've achieved. Okay. Now, the smalls are really big on having meals together, and their entire team is on board with that. And they're very successful with it, but that's very unusual. okay, that people would want to take 2 or 3 hours out of their day. But I love the idea of just bringing little snacks and treats and things like that, just nothing over the top. And if you want to take them to a meal, it needs to be an incentive-based thing, just moving forward. Okay, we're not fussing anybody, just moving forward. Okay, that first page is done.
That was good.
7 to
Good.
go. No, I'm kidding. Okay, worship. Shauna, tell us about worship. Is it mandatory?
No, unfortunately, everybody on this call knows that this can't be done without Jesus. I know that none of them can be saved without Jesus. I 100% understand that and believe in that. However, a lot of our residents come in and they have been abused in the name of God. They have had religion shoved down their throats. And sometimes their sexual abuser was the godly man in their house, or, a person from the church, or, so there's so many aspects that go into their trauma, and religion, unfortunately, is a huge part of that most of the time. And so this is something we don't want to force on our residents. We want their relationship with Jesus to happen organically. They're not required to go to church anymore. However, they are required to make the choice between church and a class. So they have an option there too. It's not just, well, if you go to church, you do nothing. That way they still have something to do in that time. And for all of us, here at Dream Center, we lead by example. We're trying to just, show Jesus through ourselves and through our actions and through our words, rather than shoving the Bible down their throats. I know I don't know. I mean, I feel like a lot of you guys do this really well too, with just, showing them the love that you're showing them just by showing up. And this is going to be the thing that will really lead them to Jesus more than anything. So I know it's a difficult thing. We are faith-based, and I know that's a big question from a lot of people, is if you're faith-based, why are they not doing these things? But again, we just want that to happen organically.
Okay. And I know it sounds like I'm rushing y'all, but I know some of y'all have to finish up work and stuff like that. And we will have a little bit of time at the end, once everybody's gotten off that needs to get off. Okay. What do you do if your mentee makes a negative comment about staff, the program, complains about the food, whatever? This is my response every single time. I am so mad at Miss Shauna. Miss Shauna said that I did this wrong. And instead of saying, Shauna's a bad person, or, well, what happened? Don't feed into it. Immediately, your first response should always be, well, tell me, Brent, how did that make you feel? What do you think is the best way to react to that? I wouldn't even go into, well, as a leader, she's doing the best she can for you. And don't even make the focus about the other person. Miss Joanna said this in class and da-da-da-da. How did that make you feel? Tell me, if you were in the outside world and this kind of situation happened, what's the best way to deal with it as an adult? Because guys, you are helping them prepare, again, to go outside the Phoenix Dream Center bubble. They are going to deal with people they don't like, bosses they don't respect, being asked to do things they don't want to do. They can't just go to the mentor team and say, I'm mad, I'm quitting that job too. Okay, well, that's the 10th one you've had this week, so we got to fix something here. So go ahead and get them to identify those feelings. What's the best reaction in an adult world? And don't feed into, well, tell me what happened, and don't even get into it. They need to learn how to function in a real world. Okay, when you are sending me your reports, which they're amazing, oh my gosh, I want y'all to start doing me a favor. At the very top, highlighted in yellow or something, if there's an immediate question, like one of our team members has a phone and they want to know, is it okay to give, Susie their phone? We have someone who's going to donate a car. We had some questions about Susie's medications. Put it at the top of the report and highlight it. And let me tell you why. Shauna is up to her eyeballs in alligators, and I'm up to the roof in alligators. And so we look at these reports, I send it to Shauna, but if there's something pressing that you really need us to see, put it at the beginning and highlight it. Okay, if a decision's being made, if you feel like something needs to be addressed with that person immediately, highlight it. Okay, and that way we know to look for that immediately. We can take our time with the rest. How does someone get a car donated to them? Well, first off, they're extremely blessed if they do. I've seen that happen twice since I've been at the Dream Center in over 7 years, except for the Stop Traffic Walk Hero. It really is not an issue that happens very often. And when it does, it goes to the next person who really, really needs it, like someone who works full time or has kids and is going to school or something like that. But it really does not happen that often. The timeline for each pillar, as long as it takes. That's it, as long as it takes. And some of them will sit at second pillar for a long, long, long time. So you will not be taking them out for nails or lunch or any fun things for a long, long time, because you want them to go for that next pillar and have some incentives with the team. Okay. What's next? What happens when you finish the program? Hopefully they graduate. That has to actually go before leadership if they're ready. They get a graduation party. You will all come to it. It will be huge. It'll be on a Saturday. We do them once a month. And at that point, they're either, because they've already hit third pillar where they can start working or going to school, they've either started going to school full time, or they're working full time, or they're looking, and you as the mental team will know they're making enough money where they can live on their own or possibly still saving for that. So that's what happens. Now, we allow them to stay at the Dream Center as long as they have to stay at the Dream Center. We do not kick them to the curb. Okay. And as long as they still obey the rules and the guidelines and keep their room clean and all that, they get to stay there. Now they might be moved to the third floor, which the rooms are not the glamorous dream suites, but they're not paying for food. They're not paying for lodging. They can sock all their money away, or they can go to school full time and finish in a timely manner. We already answered that. Okay, so Jan had some really good suggestions about the questionnaire for the mentees. I do think we can expand on it and ask a few more things, so that if you guys have some ideas of other questions we can ask them, that when mentor teams get a mentee, they'll have this information. But part of building the relationship is getting to know them and learning about them. So it's kind of a 6 of one, half does the other. Like, we let you know if they have family nearby, what medications are on, what has their past drug use been, were they trafficked. We let you know as much of that as possible, but we also want this to be a relationship building where you get to know them where they are right now. And if we give you a whole background history, then you're going to have that experience in your mind as you're getting to know the person they are right now. I'm thinking of Angelica's team and working with her mentee. If you had met him 3 or 4 years ago, you would not be meeting the person you'd meet today. He's got his act together, and needs that mentor team, yes, to continue to guide him. But if you knew everything that had ever happened to him, it would change your perception. It might make you feel sorry for them. It might make you want to help them more, help them less, ask them more questions. We really want you to form that relationship. But Jan, that's a good idea. I think there are some more questions that need to be on there. So y'all can send those to me. Just let me know any other questions that you would love to have answered to help you go into a new mentee. Once a mentee gets a phone, is it okay for them to call team members and have one-on-one conversations, as long as the team leader is fully aware of it? And guys, I know you know what CYA means, but you gotta protect yourself. If someone's having a conversation with a mentee, especially if they are the opposite sex, I would have someone else on the phone just as a witness. It's just, things just happen. Okay, so if you're having a conversation with a mentee or one of your team members are, maybe you say, well, listen, can I just listen in? And we'll let he or she know that I'm listening in as well. That way, if they say, well, Brent said this and this and this, one of Brent's team members will go, no, that's not quite what was said. So always have at least two on every kind of communication, if y'all can possibly make that happen. And if it won't work for you, get Shauna or I or Caitlin, and we'll get on the phone with you as well. It doesn't break a confidentiality or anything like that. Okay, I've got a lot of repetition here, and I'm trying to not say the same things over and over. Okay, Shauna, can you tell them how the clothing works, how the closet works?
Yeah, absolutely. So our residents have access to clothing here on our site. We get clothing donations in almost every day. Those clothing donations get gone through by our staff first to make sure that there's nothing inappropriate for our residents, whether it's like, you know, an alcoholic shirt, like not an alcoholic, but like an alcohol shirt, or you know, short shorts or tank tops. So we'll go through it first, and then we put it in a place where all of our residents are able to go through it. Now they also have the opportunity to be able to go to our thrift store and look through clothes there and get what they need. I'm currently working on trying to get a small clothing closet back here on site so that it will always have like an organized area for them to go through. However, this becomes, you know, again, it's at the residents' discretion to go and dig through the clothes and find things in their size that they like.
Okay, thank you. Intern positions. So we do have some of our residents that will kind of do a little interning, and it's basically just being like a volunteer in their spare time. But if they're in school full time or they work full time or whatever, that demand is never put on them. It is never required of them. It is completely like they want to give back. And that is closely monitored by Shauna and Caitlin, so it won't interfere with their family, their job, or their education process. Childcare on the premises. So we are working to finish the daycare center. We were in the process of doing it. It looked like it was a go. We had the funding and everything, and we found out the roof has to be completely replaced. And the people who were working on that for us got very busy in their construction life. And so it's just kind of, it's in limbo right now, but we're working as hard as we can. But Shauna, can you explain production hours and how people can have sitters on the floor?
And how people are gonna have what on the floor?
Babysitters on the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. So a part of the process that, hey babe, I'm in a meeting. Give me just a minute. Okay. A big thing that we are trying to instill in these moms that maybe have never had the opportunity to be moms before, or are learning how to be new moms, or are learning how to bond with their kids again. You know, we've seen it many, many times where a mom, you know, just doesn't know how to interact with her children. And so she'll start to ask other people to watch her children all the time. So this is something where we're putting it back on the moms. They're not allowed to just ask anybody to watch their children. They can't, you know, we are making sure that we are teaching them how to do everyday things with their children. So when they're going to classes and they're, you know, they're learning how to multitask and do stuff with their kids and still be able to pay attention. Just like I have to take my daughter to the grocery store, and I have to take my daughter to doctor's appointments, and I have to, you know what I mean? Like life doesn't just stop because you have a child. And so that's something we're really trying to teach everybody here, is how to multitask and have that. Now, do we support them when they're overwhelmed? Absolutely. But I would rather a staff member be somebody that would support them than another resident, because oftentimes even our residents that have been trafficked, that are here without children, have children of their own that have been taken away. And so this can be a huge trigger for them. So we just have to really be careful with who we're asking to watch children on our floor, because it can bring up a lot of negative emotions for them. And, you know, we work with DES. Once a resident starts working, they're able to get pretty much free childcare in the community through DES. If they're already on state assistance. So this is something we highly encourage them to do so that they can start, you know, getting back out there. But again, we just don't want them just pawning their children off on other residents, because then that's interfering with the other residents' healing process.
Okay, so before we hit the very last question, and then we're going to open it up, we are just starting to put together a program on Saturdays where we're going to have volunteers come and take all of our residents to local parks so they can have outside time and play like kids if they want to. And so we just started brainstorming on this about 4 weeks ago, and it's really coming together. So if any of y'all are ever interested in being part of that volunteer pool, you're already cleared, you're vetted, we know who you are. So let us know if you're interested in doing that. Right now, I'm your POC, but eventually it will be Stephanie Lang, who's our volunteer coordinator. But for right now, if you're interested, let me know. It'd be basically picking them up, taking them offsite to a local park. I mean, all of them will go, and just letting them have fun and stuff for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then bringing them back for lunch, or if it's an afternoon, for dinner. And you know what, Stacy, remind me, if y'all are going to keep your meetings on Saturdays, just remind me that that might be DJ's meetings on a regular basis. And if it is, we want to make sure that DJ doesn't miss out on any of that. Okay. All right. So lastly, the biggest issue facing us right now, and I'm sure there'll be a new one in another month, but let's talk about pronouns. Let's talk about transsexuals. Let's talk about gender identity, because y'all are going to dictate how your team deals with this moving forward, whether it's your mentee or your mentees talking about someone else. And we're going to give you the words to say that are not going to compromise your faith, not going to compromise God's word, but also not going to attack our people. Shauna.
Okay, so the best way to explain this for me, in the best way that I've been able to understand it for myself, but also help other people understand it, is, you know, our culture has created, as you all know, it's under attack. The sexuality and the identity of all of our children is under attack right now. Based on the trauma that a lot of our people have gone through, you know, sometimes being a girl didn't work out for them. It didn't work out because they were molested and they were raped and they were, you know, severely abused. And so, or even in the trafficking world, you know, they had every choice taken away from them. They weren't allowed to pick out their, they weren't allowed to choose what they could eat or when they could eat or how to do their makeup or how to do their hair. You know, and so it's like now they're coming out of all of that. They're in a place where they're finally able to make some decisions for themselves. And unfortunately, one of those decisions is their sexuality. It's what they want to be called. It's maybe I just want to look different, and because being the gender that I was, or that God created me to be, didn't work. And so, you know, at this point, this is where we're meeting individuals where they're at. You know, when they walk through the doors of the Phoenix Dream Center, we can't expect their choices to just change automatically. We can't expect that they're going to come in and be like, oh yes, I just love Jesus and everything's great now. You know, and that goes for any individual walking through our doors. We don't see the sexual addictions change right away. We don't see, you know, those drug addictions change right away. We don't see those pronouns change right away. Like we don't see, you know,
You muted.
Sorry, it calls people in. We don't see the habit of not showering because they don't want people to look at them change right away. It's just all of these things have come from their trauma. And so we're here as a Christ-centered organization, we're going to meet the individual where they're at. Now, this doesn't mean we agree with it. We condone it. We're pushing for it. We're not like, hey, let's get your home run therapy. There's nothing like that. It's It's just us saying, we care about you and we love you right where you are. No matter what you do, you cannot like chase our love away from you. And that's because their families have disowned them for making that choice. And the world has told them, you know, terrible things about themselves for making that choice. And we are not going to be the same as the world and what they have done to them. So, you know, a good thing that we have all, us and our higher leadership have all come up with is, you know, if we don't agree with calling them a different pronoun, that is totally fine. I don't want you to compromise your faith at all. That's not something we're doing here either. We don't, you know, we're not going to play into that and compromise our faith either. But call them by the name. Call them by the name that they want to be called. You know, God was going to grab a hold of them at some point and change that, but he's going to do that with love and with you know, by us showing them Jesus through our actions, through our words. And I think that's just super important, but we just, you know, we have to love them right where they're at, and we have to let the Holy Spirit and God do that work.
One of the things that Pastor Brian Steele told me in a meeting just yesterday is he said, if we start cramming down their throat, well, the Bible says this and Jesus says this and you're wrong and we are going to drive a wedge between them and us that Satan is going to jump in and fill. And so it takes time. It takes time to break bad habits. It takes time, and they have to trust you, and they have to know that you love them where they are, and then we'll progress from there. So real quick, just a few highlights, because I know Brent's got to run. He may have already gone. Come up with some incentives to help them reach their goals and some options for incentives that the team is willing to do. And it can be, let's do a craft together. Y'all would be shocked. When we have people come in and teach them crafts, or let's bake something, or let's cook something in the kitchen together. I mean, things that don't cost anything, they get more excited about that. I'm like, okay, you know, you'd rather make a craft than get your nails done. All right, well, that's fine with me. But, you know, you might even find books, like you can go to the library. I know the library right here in Cave Creek has book sales all the time, 75 cents to $1 for a book. And you can get them a self-help book or a book on whatever they're interested in, like Andre and cooking and things like that. Because, you know, they don't, we read everything on our phones. They actually read books. They turn pages and everything. Highlight the most important part of whatever you want us to answer or address at the top of your reports, so we can give you an immediate answer. Okay. Let's not give them cash. And I will send everybody Caitlin's information. Caitlin Presley, she has been at the Dream Center for about a year now. She's now the floor manager. And that way she can help you if you have questions about, you know, what are their goals as far as moving into this or moving into that. She can look into that and tell you what Dream Center is setting for their goals, so you can align with that, because I don't have access to that. Okay. All right. Questions? That was a lot, wasn't it? Hey, does everybody want to see the recording? Okay. No questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Melissa.
I'd be curious if anyone has any advice for a mentee that is a little harder to break through their external shell. So our mentee doesn't want to show any of her cards. She wants to do everything. She has a plan and she doesn't necessarily need us. Any advice for breaking through that initial emotional barrier to getting in?
My main advice for this is it's honestly going to be time. It's going to be time. You know, for a lot of our individuals, and even for myself, you know, their families have abused them. It's, you know, the first initial relationship with a woman that's supposed to, you know, build the relationship that you have with every woman in your life. You know, when it's your mother that's abused you, or you know, your father, it becomes really hard to open up to the world again. So I would say being consistent, just every time showing up, like you're there, you're not letting them push you away, because that's really what abused people do, is they push and push and push and wait for you to leave, just like everybody else in their life has. And so I would just encourage you to just keep loving them where they're at, keep showing them that you're going to be there, and just give it some time.
Awesome. We can do that. Thank you.
Angelica?
Yeah, I was just gonna give a suggestion too. I'm not sure what you've done in the meetings, but sometimes presenting like a team exercise with the permission of the mentee, just getting them on the same page to say, hey, let's all do like a fun team exercise. Maybe that deals with questions about maybe who they want to be, their goals, their aspirations, because it kind of deflects on what they're dealing with now, but it dives into like who they want to be. And then doing fun things like that builds that rapport. And once you're able to identify what's important to them, then they're going to start opening up, and you can maybe focus on those little things to build on.
Yeah. And I also just want to point out too that, their dreams have been pulled away from them for so long that they don't even know how to dream. They don't know how to set goals. They don't know what they want for their future. They don't, you know what I mean? So like, these are all really big decisions that we're asking them to make, that they literally maybe feel like they have no idea how to make that decision, or they really don't know what they want for that decision. And so coming into a big group of successful people and them all saying, well, what do you want to do, when they don't even know how to make that decision yet, can be super intimidating.
Okay.
So try to find a fun, light way to, really work around that and find out her interest and go from there.
Definitely. Cool. Thank you guys.
Stacy, what you got?
Okay, I just had a couple of questions about the pillars. So is there like different goals that are set in each pillar before they move up, or how do the pillars work?
I'll send you the whole breakdown on it.
Okay, thank you. And then
Nice.
can you elaborate a little bit more on because you've kind of gone over like some certain scenarios for like housing, transport, and financial. Can you go over the other 4 that are left?
Well,
Or,
family,
like what
I mean,
situation?
you can talk about what does family look like, and the family person could, get a little bit deeper into what are your dreams of what does your family look like in your head. That would be your vision board. I'm trying to think the other stuff, transportation,
Well,
medical.
And I feel like family can be kind of a touchy subject too for some of them, but I would also encourage like how you can make a family with the people that are right around you, and how Dream Center, who, like, if you could pick anybody in your current circle to be in your family, like who would it be, and start just getting them to open up and talk about that. And I would even work on like boundaries and how real people have boundaries with their family members, just like they have with outside people, and stuff like that, because oftentimes we've allowed our families have just allowed, or have had no boundaries whatsoever. And so it becomes this very skewed, like, well, I'm supposed to just let my family do whatever they want to me kind of thing.
Another one, healthcare. You can always talk about healthcare because that's mental, spiritual, physical, all the way to what do benefits look like when you get a job? What is a benefit? Why is that important? Why would you pick one job over another one? Because the benefits are better.
And I would even encourage that like each one of these sections doesn't have to have a goal that needs to be reached every month. Maybe
No.
it's just mentoring them in that section and just saying like, hey, let's have a conversation on this today, or even just waiting for that to pop up. Oftentimes allowing them to lead it is going to get you a lot farther because you know that they're interested in it.
Okay. And then career and education, is that kind of like, where do you want to be? Like, what do you want to, like your goal in, I guess, life, or at least this part?
What are your gifts?
Yeah,
and-
absolutely. And again, that's going to be something they may not even be able to answer yet.
One thing that we're finding about education is there's a lot of fear attached to it, because if they didn't finish high school or school was not a positive experience for them, to go back into that is not a positive thought. So some, like DJ said, I want to work. Like, I want to start working as soon as possible. I'm going to start making money so that I can pay to go to music school. Okay, that makes sense to me. So you don't have debt. But we are
Mhm.
finding out, and I just got an article sent to me today from one of our teachers that there are some things opening up in Arizona right now that they could actually go to college tuition free. It's paperwork and they got to do FAFSA, that, and the Pell Grant. And once they get all that in, they can qualify for it. I already forgot what it's called, but it just came out. This is brand spanking new. And if they qualify, here it is. If they qualify for all this, then it's called the Promise Program in Arizona. Then almost all their school is paid for. But they have to be committed because they have to be going into college for the first time. I mean, I read the whole article today. There are some requirements. They can't say, well, you know, I'm going to drop out for a while and then come back unless they're going in the military or they have a medical reason. Once they start, they have to finish to get the promise.
And then I would also encourage, you know, to give them some buy-in to it. So if you're going to present these types of things to your mentee, present them, hand them the resources, let them do the legwork, let them do the calls, let them do the paperwork, let them turn it in, you know, like, yes, we can support them and say, okay, well, this is how you do it. Now you need to fill out this paperwork. You need to check these boxes, you know, but this is all teaching them about how, you know, you need to read it before you sign it, you know, and then, okay, so where does it say you need to mail it to, or which number could you call to get that information, you know, and really guide them in those steps.
Leading, not doing. Any other questions?
I don't know what we missed up front since we weren't available yet,
That's
but
okay.
I guess we could listen to the tape and then get back to you if you didn't address them.
So the main thing you missed, we kind of went over again, is not to give them money
Yeah,
because they'll make bad choices or could make bad choices. And to make things incentive based. So, you know, if you reach this goal or you do this or, you know, whatever that the team has set up and the mentee has bought into, then here's a choice of what you can have. You know, we can take you to lunch or you can go get your nails done. That's a big thing. Or, you know, we can do a craft or, you know, we always said when I was teaching school, teenagers spell love T-I-M-E. And that's really how they spell love as well. It's just getting more time with you and getting off campus. So to make those incentives based on performance.
okay. What is the spiritual leader supposed to do?
Pray for them.
Okay, but we all do that. But if we're looking at categories of service, what we have as team members,
Mhm.
you know, what can they do if they
The
get
spirit-
pushback?
So the spiritual person would be a good person to have maybe a book that they are reading along with the mentee and discussing it for a few minutes at each meeting. You know, what'd you think of this chapter? What'd you think of this chapter? And it would be, you know, I would love for it to be the Bible, but it might be Alison Walwork's book. It might be because the Secret Sisters just gave them all Alison Walwork's book. It might be you know, a journal of some type, a devotional journal. A couple of the teams in the very beginning, we actually ordered them devotionals because they wanted devotionals. And I'm like, don't get it, I'll get it. So I just ordered it through Amazon and had it sent to the team leader. And the team covered that, the spiritual person covered that with them at every meeting, every other week, is how far they were along in that book. So it's just getting into their soul. It's the untangible things and dealing with those. It can even go into temptations. Do they feel tempted? Do they ever miss the life they came from? How does that make them feel? A lot of times, 90% of your conversation is going to be, how did that make you feel? How does that make you feel? And just dealing with that, the emotions of it. They have a lot of emotions going on in them. A lot of anger. A lot of anger. And I was going to say too, with Melissa's question, because I know who her mentee is, you'd be surprised that sometimes if they're not smiling on the outside, they're probably smiling on the inside. They really are. Their face isn't always going to show their emotions because they have a wall, a big wall. So, and I think sometimes we just have to remember what they've gone through and how they've been treated. And you wouldn't feel all warm and fuzzy the first time you ever met a stranger either. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, you know, the pillar thing again,
Mhm,
are there so many points for a pillar?
mhm.
Or is it just based on goals? How do they get points? How can they get points?
So there's,
How
they
do you
get-
encourage them to get the points?
they get points by going to class and doing their productivity hours every week. They have chores, they have to have their room clean, and they go to class. And that's why we take roll in class. So it's just basically showing up to life every day. And that's how they get their points.
Okay.
And it
then
ends up, it's 17 points a day. And over the course of all 4 pillars, it translates into 5,000 points. I didn't set up the point system,
Okay,
so it took me a while to get it too.
yeah. All right, and then our person had quite a bit of problem trying to get into a computer, to get time to go down to the computer room and spend time to look things up, so do they have set times they can go down
Yeah,
there?
if-
Can they go down there at any time? Do they get an hour a week or 2 hours or what?
They do not have carte blanche in the Sons Learning Center, but your person just hit 3rd pillar.
Right,
So there's going to be a lot more privileges allowed for that person. But the Sons Learning Center, we can't open it up to have access all the time because we don't know what they're going to go online and do. It's for their protection.
No supervision in there,
Do
right?
what?
No
Yeah.
supervision in there.
Yeah. So if you have a situation like that, like Susie says, well, I need to get on the computer and I can't. Get on your phone, text me and go, we're working with Susie right now. She needs to get on the computer. Can we set up a schedule for her? I will immediately contact Caitlin, get her a schedule set up, and probably within the next day, we'll have her on a computer.
okay. Because, you know, now she's in 3, so she's gonna be looking for a job. She's gonna need to, you know, put together a resume, get a resume sent out to all kinds of people, all kinds of places.
Yeah.
And then, and 3rd pillar, can they get a phone, or is that, when do they,
They can, at 3rd pillar, they can get a phone.
okay,
It's very restricted. They have to turn it in at 8 o'clock every night.
okay, I mean, I have no problem with any restrictions on it, just so that from time to time I can communicate with that person.
Yeah.
They can communicate with us.
And Dave, we've actually considered having mentor teams start at 3rd pillar, but it's kind of like trying to influence a teenager. If you could have started when they were 12 or 13, you'd get a lot farther than picking them up when they're 17 and 18. So we know that that 2nd pillar thing is kind of a pain because you have to communicate through me. But the goal is they won't be in 2nd pillar long. And they're working so hard to get to 2nd pillar so they can get a team. So it's another incentive.
And I don't know, what's this $5,000 thing?
Okay, we covered that.
Yeah, we went
Okay, we
there.
can listen. You don't
No,
have
no,
to-
no, it's fine. It's fine. I can go over it because people are signing off anyway if they want to get off. So the 5,000, where does it, first off, where does it come from? Our goal, hopefully, is that it comes from the mentor teams. Because if you're doing the $400 per person or the $800 per person tax credit that you get for Arizona to the Dream Center, we earmark it for your person. If not, we get it donated. We get it from somewhere. Once they
Okay.
graduate, we sit down with the mentee, the team, Shauna, and or myself or Caitlin, and we show them how this money is going to be used. We can't just hand them $5,000. You know, and the thing is, it will be gone so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
if we did that. So we have to show them, okay, so, you know, you're looking at staying at the Dream Center, going to school or working for another year and saving your money. What bills do you have right now? How do we need to budget this money? Do we need to put it aside in a savings account for when you're ready to get an apartment or get a car or for a down payment? Because this is where the budgeting person, the finance person, the housing, education, at that point, they all are coming together. And this is where the work gets hard. It should get easier. This is where you really have to start collaborating.
Mhm.
Yeah, we figured
So it's
that
not
part out.
automatic. Is it, if they graduate from the program, is everybody automatically, it has the 5,000 that they get to figure out what to do with it?
It's all done through their points. If they
Okay.
don't, they have to max out their points. So they may only qualify for 2,500. They may only
Okay.
qualify for 4,000.
Based on
But all
points.
this is new as of the last year. So
Okay,
people who were already in the program, we're trying to make sure that they get everything they're supposed to get.
okay. That clears it up.
But we work with you guys and you work with us as we work with our mentee on what the priorities are as she's getting ready or he's getting ready to step out into the community.
Right. Right. And we really try not, once they graduate, we really try to hang on to them as long as we can. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't forcibly.
Right,
But if they have a place to go or a good family or they've got a decent job and they can afford it, we want them to leave the nest. But what we're finding is that some of our
Repeat.
graduates weren't quite ready. And a year, 2 years later, they come back, they're pregnant, or they're back on something, or they need our help again. And of course, we take them back.
right.
But maybe if we had done more before they flew the coop, we could have safeguarded that. And it's kind of like y'all raise kids and you know when your kid's ready to be out there on their own, and you know when they're ready to be out their own and make a few mistakes too.
And our kids came back later too, you know what I'm saying?
Not for long.
For a while.
Not for
They couldn't
long.
put up with it
Not
very
for
long,
long.
but,
Not for
you
long.
know, a few months just to get their feet back under them.
Exactly. So we don't ever want to cut off the source of the Dream Center from them. But again, they come back to the Dream Center. They have to abide by the rules. They have to,
Right.
you know, clean their room again and be accountable. And
They start over.
yeah, it's basically like when your parents say you're living back under my roof, so you can't stay out all hours of the night, and, you know, common sense kind of stuff. But a lot of this, you're just gonna get it as you go. And you guys have a tough one. Very talented, very intelligent,
Yes, she is.
but
Wow.
this is what I'm going to do.
Well, within the parameters.
Exactly.
You know, she has a lot of ideas, but too many. So focusing on one or two is our challenge.
Yeah. Let's take one bite of that elephant at a time. Okay, well, I'm gonna turn off the recording, and if you're watching the recording and you have more questions, just email me or text me. Have your people call
Okay.
my people.